everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing something a little bit different. I have a guest. So I'm doing an interview today with Stephanie from, you have changed your name recently too. It's not Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry, which we all know you as. It's Rabbitry and Yarns, correct?
Correct. I just shortened it up a little bit. It's, legally we're still a Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry and Yarns, but also legally we have the assumed or doing business as name of Rabbitry and Yarns. So those are both our trademarked legal property.
And I think people can still find you either way because I've done the searches for you. So, okay, great. So today we are going to hop on and talk about, we're going to talk about a few things, but the main thing we're going to talk about is some projects that Stephanie is working on in regards to breeding Angora rabbits. So let's jump into this. Tell us a little bit about yourself, whatever you want to share, just so we can get to know you.
Sure, absolutely. So a long time ago when I was a child, I had to beg my parents for a rabbit, and I had one. And it really got it started around third grade. And I was learning how to knit, especially at a young age. And then you kind of go through life and you enjoy this process. You enjoy the rabbits, you enjoy the yarn, you enjoy, what you're doing. And you fast forward to when I became an adult and I was looking for a soft yarn, a natural, 100% natural fiber, soft yarn. I wanted to make something for my daughter. And I couldn't, no matter where I went, I could not find a truly soft yarn because your hands know when you touch it whether it is truly soft or not. The label may say soft, but that doesn't mean anything. So couldn't find the yarn, couldn't find natural fibers, decided Angora rabbits, they're the smallest fiber animal. Let's get one and I'm going to make my own yarn. And that's truly how the short version of how I got started with what I'm doing right now.
Yep. And I think we all kind of have that same story. You started much earlier than I did, but that was the quest I was on to make my own yarn from some kind of fiber animal. So how long have you been raising your Angoras?
So raising my Angoras didn't start until probably the 2010s is when I really got into the raising my own. So
yep. Perfect.
Just over a decade.
Yeah. Now, do you have other fiber animals? You have a farm, correct? Do you have other fiber animals?
A teeny little, I guess, we're not big enough to be called a farm, but yeah, we have 3 additional sheep, and those are the fiber animals that we have right now, the rabbits and the sheep.
Okay, perfect. And you spin all of your yarns and everything like that.
Yes. Yep. Everything. Okay. I love to spin the yarn. I love the entire process with creating the yarn. And so I make my own yarn. I use my own yarn, all that good stuff.
Okay. And do you, in regards to, do you have a shop? Do you do fairs or shows, or how do you do that? And do you have other products? Is yours a mix of your stuff? Do you bring in other people's fibers and spin them?
Oh, good questions. So yes, I have primarily online. That's the biggest place for me. I have been doing, trying out a lot more markets, a lot more craft fairs. We're going to try out, there's 2 different farmers markets where we are. There's actually a couple more than that, but we're going to try out 2 different farmers markets. And that's something that I had, especially with everything that happened with COVID, transitioned to primarily online.
Yeah.
And the fibers that I use, I use as much of my own fibers as possible, but I do also use other fibers as well. So I will buy anything from silk to roving that's already been dyed, perhaps, to other raw, like alpaca fleeces, or I'll go online on Etsy and I'll find like some art bats and, whatever I like, I'll pick it up.
Yep. Typical fiber person, I think. Now, when you talk about shows and things like that, I've always struggled here. You're in the UP of Michigan, correct? and I'm in the
Yes.
lower peninsula. For those of you
Yes.
who don't know, Michigan's two parts. Stephanie's in the upper part. I'm in the lower part. And I have always struggled with shows, with the craft shows. And when you sit next to a booth that has the Red Heart yarn scarves, which there's nothing wrong with that, but when they're selling their scarves for like $5 or $10 and you have handmade right from the get-go, off your own animals, spent hours spinning it and then making it, do you struggle with that?
I love that question. I absolutely love that question because that's been something throughout this entire process that's necessary to look at, that's necessary to address, and that's necessary to find solutions for. Because yes, there is there's a definite component to what I do that requires me providing education to people, because many, in the past, many years ago, of course, yarn is made from natural fiber. Before there was such a thing as acrylic, the only options were natural fibers. What else are you going to make it for? But then we have the inventions of all sorts of man-made synthetic materials, and we have, of course, the entire production process, and it changes things. And so there's this re-education process, especially when I do markets or craft fairs, that happens. People are so often surprised, first of all, that I'm sitting at a spinning wheel and the spinning wheel's moving and I'm actually using it. It's not just a decoration. And then there's the sometimes just awesome confusion of, what do you mean you're spinning, rabbit?
Yes.
So yes, it is an ongoing process, and it's definitely something that people want natural things. People want healthy things. Nobody wants to purposefully do something that might end up making more of a mess in the future, that might make themselves sick, or the land, the water sick. I just read an interesting study that there's microplastics found in arteries of humans. And so, you read about that and you're like, there's never a study about Angora particles found in your arteries.
Yep. I was just going to talk to you about that because I'm reading a book right now about that and how many microplastic things are in our clothes and in our water and everywhere. And all of that comes from the clothes we're wearing today. And yeah, it's super, super interesting. And like you said, not that long ago, within the last 50 to 100 years, there was not this industrial made yarns. Everything was 100 years ago, everything was handmade. And so it's changed so dramatically. Let's see. So I think we're going to jump into the main focus of this. And before I get too far, you were talking about educating people. That's one of the things why I love YouTube, is that I'm able to, because like you, when I saw my first Angora rabbit, I had no clue they were out there. And then as I progressed on this journey, found out that other people were absolutely shocked by the fact that you could get fiber from something besides a sheep.
Right.
So I've been down that same journey. You also have the YouTube channel, which I will put all the links down below for all of Stephanie's stuff. But do you use your YouTube channel as a huge basis of your education like I do?
Yes, that's something I think you and I both share. And I watch your videos. I've been subscribed to your channel for years. It's something where it's like, I appreciate, because it's difficult for one person to just do everything and cover everything alone. In fact, it's quite impossible when it comes to Angora rabbits and fiber arts and everything. There's so many different potential ways. We're all on a different spot of our learning journey. And so, I definitely use my YouTube channel as a way to put information out there. And the interesting thing is, over time, we all change hopefully, as we learn information, and as information is being shared, as we're discovering things, as we're going through life and we're gaining experiences. I find that, the way I used to do things, there's things that change, and then that's okay. it's just fine. And it's part of the entire learning and part of the entire educational process.
Yes. Yeah, I agree totally. I was just talking to someone yesterday that I could continue to do what I'm doing with the Angoras, and every day I can learn something new. Maybe not every day, but there's always something that pops up. I think the bigger, like the Facebook rabbit pages get, I read something yesterday on a rabbit page that I had no idea was even out there. And so yeah, every day you can learn something new and continue. I keep thinking I'm going to run out of ideas for my videos, and then, twice a week I'm still able to produce videos because there's so much information in regards to fiber arts and then the animal side of things too. So the reason why I wanted to really talk to you today was in regards to your mission that you're on right now,
Oh my
which
goodness.
we've talked that this is a big project for you. For those of you who don't know, there are several, I think there are 11 Angora type rabbits out there, fiber animal rabbits that are out there. There are 4 that are recognized by the ARBA, which is the American Rabbit Breeders Association. And then there are a few coming into the mix now, and Stephanie is working on one of those. So why don't you tell us about the project you're on, what it involves, because it's huge when you think about how you go about doing this.
Right. Definitely. I'm listening to you, and when you're like, yeah, it's huge. This is a huge project, and it's like, you absolutely got it right.
Yeah.
So, yep, definitely. Um, I started with Angora rabbits, and every breed of Angora rabbit has it. They're all valuable. All the Angora rabbit breeds have value, and yet there were things that I wanted different, and I couldn't find one particular breed that had already existed that exactly fit what I wanted. So of course, then it was like, let's decide that we're going to do something difficult and very time consuming, and we are going to start the process of making the breed of rabbit that I really want as a hand spinner and somebody who also considers my rabbits, part of. They're not just there that I shove them off to the side and ever so often give them a haircut.
Right.
They're part of my life. I love learning their personalities, and so I call them fiber friends. So,
Yeah.
but it was really, it's really something, if I were to be honest, that, this, at the point that I'm at right now, I don't regret biting off this big of a chunk. However, it became apparent that, man, as one person, this is really a process that it is very time consuming. There's a lot of effort that goes into it. There's a lot of waiting, observing, paying attention, looking at your original hypothesis or looking at your original premise, looking at the information that you had originally, looking at what you have in front of you, learning what you can, making decisions, and that happens throughout the entire process. So it's an ever evolving sort of process as well. So really, I wanted, one of the things I kept noticing is that as a hand spinner, I really wanted a particular type of fiber. I didn't want a lot of guard hairs, and I didn't want rabbits, for example, that produced smaller amounts of litters. I wanted certain furnishings. I wanted the ability as a hand spinner as well to have access to all colors, because I didn't want to be limited in the color of my yarn or the color of my finished garment. When you think of the natural colors, I didn't want to be limited in that. I wanted to be able to look at the finished yarns or in the finished garments and know this is 100% natural, and it's all the colors that I could possibly have. So,
Yes.
and there's many more things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you say that about the colors, because I just acquired my first. Now, I've been doing this almost 20 years, but it was very much for me the first, I don't know, 10 years. It was very much a hobby focus on spinning only. But I just acquired my first satin Angora, and I had no idea how intense their range is limited in colors, but the color intensity is so much more than my French or my English Angoras. So it's interesting you say that, because yeah, that becomes a thing where you're looking at these colors going, I want deeper, richer. I got a black satin and she is black, where my French Angoras, black is black face, dark gray body, or light gray body even. So exactly, that's something that's really interesting, are the color variations.
Right. And I thought, you know, one of the things I was thinking too in life is sometimes with rabbit breeds, I love having more of an open mind. So, for example, there's different breeds where if you have a marbled eye with your rabbit, so the rabbit might have brown and blue in the eye, and it's called marbling, and it's a disqualification.
Right.
And I think to myself, as a hand spinner, and as somebody who likes rabbits as pets or as rabbits as my fiber friends, I have to have rabbits that I can handle them easily to get the wool off. What on earth does the color of the eye have to do with my rabbit being able to be shorn, being healthy, being the wool that it produces, the yarn that is going to end up being produced from it? And I thought, you know, we don't, we as humans, we don't limit, hopefully, we don't limit like who we talk to just based on eye color. So,
Exactly.
and, you know, humans are there where there's such a variety in us. And it's a wonderful thing. Like, it's so fascinating to find people and to learn different things and to see, you know, everything that's different in life. And I think like, I couldn't find the value in limiting, for example, the rabbits based on eye color. So I said, I want to breed that we're going to focus on the things that matter. We're going to ignore and we're going to allow the things that truly just don't matter to the health of the rabbit, to the temperament of the rabbit, to the, you know, to the wool that's produced.
Right, right. Yeah. So it ends up focusing on the things that, as passionate for spinning, we want the good fiber. We want the length in the fiber, the staple length. We want high producing rabbits that are easy to handle. All of those things make such a huge difference, rather than like the things you're talking about that disqualify show rabbits, for sure. So what is the breed you're creating?
So I call it the American Angora Rabbit. And that's because it's what I have had to do and what I'm continuing to do is to take from multiple different already established breeds of Angora rabbits and to, you know, select what I like from them to create this particular breed of rabbit. And in some ways, you know, that's very much like America. We are so many different things,
Right,
all in one country.
right,
So it
right.
just seemed fitting.
Exactly. So when you talk about the time that this takes, you know, when you think of just breeding rabbits and having a batch of babies, typically 30-ish days. But what you're talking about is breeding two and then finding out what you've got between those two, and then continuing this process over and over again. How many years have you been working towards this? Because it's been a while.
It's been a while. Probably, I started this probably 4 or 5 years ago when I got serious about this, at least when I stopped and I looked back and tried to figure out, you know, when is the starting point for this? And that's really part of, you know, when I started getting serious about this, because I had one breed of rabbit, and I ended up experiencing some struggles with the breed of rabbit because of different reasons. Then I tried importing a rabbit from an Angora rabbit from Germany to try to help, and just realized, you know, that's very expensive to do. And
Yes.
so this is something that this path just became more clear at that time, that this is a good road to go down, because hopefully I have the rest of my life to work on this. And hopefully, I can get it to the point where I feel comfortable having introducing this, having other people begin to join me on this process.
Right, right. So what breeds did you start with, and can you tell kind of where you're at today? I'm assuming you keep logs of everything or notes. How do you
Yes.
keep track of it all after a few years?
Yes. Oh my gosh, all good questions. So first of all, I have to be quite honest. So I have both a bachelor's and a master's degree. And so I have already college level study in genetics. So I'm not approaching this from a situation of not knowing anything about
Yep,
genetics, which
yep,
it would take more time to learn. You certainly can learn. You can approach
right,
it that way. There's nothing wrong with it. But I had a leg up, being that I had already had a background in which studying genetics was part of this. And so I take a look at what I'm doing, and in record keeping, that was something that's, as you're learning about genetics and you're learning about the scientific entire process, it's something that's very important to keep records. I have, I keep my records primarily paper still,
mhm,
and they're written down in notebooks, in journals, in, I there's a lot of a stack of different things that I have where I keep my records. I haven't transferred them really to digital at all. I have pedigrees that are digital to keep track that particular way, but a pedigree is not enough. In my opinion, a pedigree is not enough when you're doing a project like this. It does
right,
not contain enough information for you to make the type of decisions that are necessary. So
right,
what I mean
right.
by that is, you may know all the way going back. So my pedigrees, for example, have percentages of the breeds. So you're going to see primarily the Germans, the English, French, and satin mixed in there. Because there's a lot of things we're considering. We're considering what are the furnishings, how much wool is being produced, what's the body type, what's the weight, how easy. Germans, I've always found that loaf type of the German is so incredibly easier to shear than a
Yeah,
little bit of the more angular hips of other breeds. But the Germans have a bigger body type, and they produce a ton of wool. That's
right,
great for when it's cold, but when it's warm, especially the weird weather that we've been having, too much wool is a problem.
right, right.
So, so those are really primarily the four breeds we have. I have a buck right now, Mr. Black Betty, that he has some giant in him, and it's a strange combination. It's giant in English. That's
Okay. Yeah,
like
yeah.
working with
Such a
that
big
is, it's
difference. Yeah,
introducing a whole host of problems, really, because you're getting things you want, but then you're getting things you don't want, because the
yeah,
predictability of what is the body size truly going to be and that's the rooster crowing, but
yeah.
if you can hear him. But if you have a giant in those particular genetics, and then you have English, this smaller little rabbit with just a ton of furnishings, hardly any guard hair, you're really, it introduces, there's some things I want color genetics wise, furnishings wise, some of these things wise. It's just it gets very complicated to sort
Oh,
it
I
all
bet.
out.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Now, you've been at this for a few years. When you look at this, you say it could take your lifetime to do it. Are you close to seeing what you want in this American Angora? Or do you know that you're still, I guess, is this going to be like a knitting project where you get to a point and then you reach out to other people and say, hey, could you do the test knit on this for me to see where we're at? Is that kind of where you're at this point, or not even close?
I have so to be able to create breeds, you need to have healthy rabbits, you have to have genetic diversity. And so one of the ways that I'm approaching this is I have breedings of rabbits that I've been doing to get where I'm at right now with the rabbits I have. And I have to say, I'm part of it is I'm a bit obsessive and a bit ridiculously strict. So you don't have to be as obsessive and strict as I am. But I would say one rabbit right now that I can look at and I say, he has the furnishings that I want. He has the wool that I want. He has the temperament I want. He has the body that I want. He has the ability to withstand environmental conditions that I want without having to do things like install air conditioning or install a heater or have these, more expensive housing setups that I don't want to have to. I don't want to have that. I would say there's one rabbit.
Okay.
That's where I'd say right now. I
Okay.
have two that they're young, so I can't be confident until they're adults, until I see who are you, what are you producing over this span of time, how is your wool over this span of time, how are you through different different weather situations, what's your health, how are you when I'm feeding you, because one of the things I wanted with rabbits is I don't want a rabbit that if I feed it carrots and it just becomes sick. I
Right.
wanted to have a bit of durability in my rabbits.
Hardiness.
Rabbits that,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And so, yeah, it's taken some time. But I have
Okay.
one rabbit and two that I can't say for certain yet.
Potentials.
However, there's quite a few more that are um, hanging out.
Okay. Okay. And I had a video last week talking about breeding rabbits. And when I talked about that, and you and I talked about this a little bit, I also mentioned to people to remind them that if you are going to be breeding rabbits and you have a batch of 12 or even 8, if you can't get rid of those rabbits or sell them, you have to be prepared that they're going to be at your farm. Do you have housing and all of that? How do you deal with some of that as you're continuing to breed? Because that's lots of babies.
Yes. So that's one of the things that's limiting of my time, because Renee, I agree with you. That's part of the ethical breeding standard that, you place upon yourself. When you set out to be a rabbit breeder, there's a lot of questions that we have to answer. There's a lot of things we have to look inside of ourselves. And do we agree to this? Do we disagree with this? How do we feel about this? And you're exactly, your words, they can't ring any more true. They're just the complete truth. Is when you breed rabbits, the breeder is ultimately responsible for those rabbits. That exactly what you mean is, do you have the space? Do you have the resources? Do you have the time? Do you have the commitment that if you have, for example, 24 rabbits and something happens to you medically, do you have a contingency plan? Do you have people who can take care of those rabbits for you? Because they're Angoras. They're not like regular rabbits where all you have to do is, you don't need to give them haircuts.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that go into it, and I absolutely agree with you. So I'm limited on right now. I'm limited on all the things that I mentioned. There's a finite amount of time that I have. There's a finite amount of money that goes into this. The cages that I use, the pens that I use I switched to the KW cages. They have a bit more durable, just better wire. It's, not that there's a problem. I've never had a problem with sore hocks because you and I have talked about this. We have
Yep.
Angoras. It's like if you as a human were to put a pillow on the bottom of your foot,
Yep.
that's what it's like. They're just
Biggest,
walking around in
fluffiest
these
sock you could
pillows.
wear. Yep. Yep.
So it's I'm limited with my space, and I'm limited to the amount of rabbits that I feel that I can give the best care to, that I feel I can give the attention to, because part of having rabbits in a pen is that means they have to have time outside of the pen,
Yep.
which means for where I live, we have a significant amount of natural predators. So we have anything from just dogs, stray cats, including my own two dogs. They can be around the rabbits. They cannot be unsupervised around
Right.
the rabbits. It's not
Yep.
something to be trusted. To, black bears, wolves, coyotes. We have a ton of eagles,
Yep.
just foxes, just name it. And so when I thought about, the American Angora breed, one of the things I put in, if you go to rabbitryandYarns.com, one of the things you'll find on the first page is there's actually discussion that I put on there about the housing and about the feeding. And so, and about when what is it like when a doe is bred? How, some starting points for this, where it's like, a doe, one of the things I want to work towards is a doe that can breed and a buck that can breed all year. And
Yes.
you're not limited to the
Yep.
time of the year. And to be able to have a buck that and a doe that you put them together, they have one fall off. Let's just say one fall off for whatever reason. And you're still going to get a minimum of at least 4 healthy kits that survive with no human intervention, which I
Yes.
thought it's something that as rabbit breeders, I mean, we see so many things. There's so many things that naturally happen. There could be
Mhm.
stillborn rabbits. There could be rabbits that, for whatever reason, they might be starting to get older, and this last litter is the litter where they just decide to overgroom, overclean their baby
Yep.
bunnies, and then you don't have any baby bunnies
Yep.
anymore. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All of that stuff is a part of it for sure. As you talk about moving forward with this project, you're talking about getting more people involved. What does that look like for you? What are you looking for in people to be involved in this? What do you need, I guess?
perfect. I love that. So what I'm really looking for are people who have that lifelong learning tendency, that tendency to say, this is what I'm going to do based upon what I know right now. And we're going to keep learning. We're going to keep going. We are doing the absolute best that we can based on what we have and what we know. But we also keep an open mind. We keep observing. We keep paying attention to, and we're honest. And sometimes that honesty is the hard, some of the hard questions, like exactly what you're saying, is if I have this litter of rabbits, do I have the resources, housing, and time to be able to house them all in case none of them, for example, none of them, if you're selling them, none of them may sell. Or if you're breeding, you're keeping them all because
Right.
you're observing them and you're paying attention to them, which means you have to feed them all, So I'm really what I would look for is, you know, people who can see the way I think. I go off on tangents. I've got a lot going on in the brain. My explanations are lengthy. They're never short. I wish they were. But it reflects the contingencies. It reflects the complexity of some of the things we're addressing. So people who are willing to have patience with me about that, but also people, like I said, the lifelong learning, and people who are also interested in raising rabbits that when you go on and you read I think it's 12 things. When you go on and you read the 12 things, they're interested in those 12 things as well for rabbits, and kind of like the 12 tenets right now of this breed. People who are interested they want rabbits that have more of a gregarious personality, rabbits that aren't going to be aggressive towards humans, rabbits that they're a bit easier to train, just because we're selecting also personality as well as wool characteristics. People who understand that this is a financial commitment, this is something that is ongoing, and we're doing something that in some ways is against the grain.
Mhm.
Whenever you do something where you're not conforming to what is there already, you have the possibility for a lack of understanding, or you have the possibility to completely have people think, what are you doing?
Yep.
Why are you doing that? There's already wonderful breeds that exist. Or people to not understand right away the value of what you're doing, and to be able to face criticism, to be able to have that as a part of life, and to be able to deal with that, and also to be able to people who can also deal with failure, people who can you know take a look at a situation and say, I've just bred these rabbits, and this is not, I've got some characteristics that I need to work on still, and
Yep.
I need to address those, and I need to figure out a plan of how to address those.
Yeah.
So um, I guess maybe some rebels. A
Yes.
little bit of that rebellious tendency where, you know what, you want to make something and you want to make it better, and we're going to have fun doing it. Just if we
Yep.
can't have fun doing this, then if it becomes too much work, then man,
You lose your
we've had
passion.
enough work.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Now let's talk end game with this. Let's say 5 years down the road, you've got the rabbit. Do you have any idea right now what that looks like in order to bring it into the world and possibly even put it in that lineup of, instead of just 4 recognized breeds, there's now this 5th breed out there? Do you know what that looks like or what you have to do to get there?
Yeah, I think that's a cool thing. I've had thoughts about that. And I think if someone else, so you and I have had a conversation about this, about ARBA, and I'm not a member of ARBA. I
Right.
used to be a member of ARBA. And one of the hangups, just quite honestly and openly, is I'm a bit too much of a rebel. I can't, in good faith, say I am going to uphold everything. And ARBA is absolutely necessary, and it's
Right.
a very good thing. And I think if someone wanted to introduce this particular breed to ARBA, I think there's some things that would make that a bit challenging. For example, when I'm evaluating my rabbits, I'm evaluating it more along the lines of what the International Association of German Angora Rabbit Breeders has structured themselves to evaluate their rabbits. You're judging the rabbit against not any other rabbits that are there, but truly against the standards. So there is no first place, second place, third place, and that's something that, there's ARBA has grand champions and just ways of viewing rabbits. And I would say we'd have to think about how that fits in there, because when I judge my rabbits, I judge it against the ideal, what I have written down as the ideal American Angora rabbit.
Mhm.
And so that means um, there's automatically, you're not judging against your neighbors, your rabbits next to you. So that's something that I don't know how you'd put that in ARBA, because it's a different way of looking at
Yep.
things.
Yep.
And so, I mean, and not that it's not possible, but I think, yeah, if someone could figure that out who is not me, then more power to you,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
But 5 years down the road, I think 5 years from now, definitely, I want to have, there's 3 main colors that I really want to see. And so I really want to see good white wool. I
Mhm.
want to see good black wool. And I want to see, right now I have one, a rufous, a red type
Mhm.
wool, or, um, I have some harlequin in there. But really, if you were to group it as just like a beige type fiber, a beige
Yep.
type Angora.
Yep.
And so those are, when I'm thinking about things, those are the 3 main areas that I'm kind of looking at in getting the health, getting the temperament, getting the furnishings. And in 5 years, how much can you do? And um, hopefully a lot. But when I'm honest, like I said, it's going to be a lifelong process. So if
Yeah.
people wanted to join me, they just need to reach out and tell me, like, just start a conversation, and
Yep.
we can talk about what you're hoping, what might you be hoping for? What are you hoping? What do you want your part to be in this? And what can we
Right.
do together? And will this potentially work? And how will we know if it doesn't work?
Yep.
So
Yep. So your focus on this isn't necessarily to get a breed specific registered acknowledged bunny. This is really for us hand spinners and all of the magic things that we want to see in one bunny.
yes,
That's what it's going to be
yes.
for. It's for we hand spinners that want very specific things when we're spinning.
Right. I'm not doing this to have it a member of the American
Anything.
Rabbit Breeders Association
Yep.
by any means. And this may mean something like literally just starting my own association for
Yep.
just American Angoras. It might be that. And if that's the case, then that's fine. Um, and it's something where, those things, I think I've definitely thought about those things and thought about, how do you put these things into place? What does it look like? And I'm just not there yet with the rabbits that I have to start making more concrete decisions.
Okay. Okay. Well, we are almost an hour in. I think I've answered all of my questions. Is there anything else you could think that you'd want to add to what we talked about today?
I think you and I think together you and I have had some just great conversations about the different ways of raising rabbits, the different ways of addressing and paying attention to rabbit needs. I think I've always been fascinated by your colony setup of rabbits
Yeah.
because that's something that I've tried once to do and I completely failed at it. But and it has nothing to do, with the, creating this particular breed of rabbit. But
Right.
that's
Right.
something I would love to discuss more with you in the future is
Yeah. We need to do more of these because I think there's such a huge amount of stuff that we could still discuss just over Angora rabbits. I think people tend to get in a box. You talked about this a little bit where they get in the box of thinking this is how things are and this is how it's always going to work out and this is how it always will be. And that is so not true. And so, yeah, I would love to talk with you again about more things. So again, where can we find you across the World Wide Web? Where are you at?
the best place to find me is rabbitry.and-yarns.com.
Okay.
And that'll lead all sorts of places. You can also just go to YouTube and you can type in either Razzle Dazzle Rabbitry or Rabbitry and Yarns. You're going to find something.
Yep.
Those are the
Awesome.
places. Yeah, those are the places I'm most
Okay. And I
active.
will link all your information down below. So thank you so much for talking with me today. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I love hearing about your adventure that you're on.
Yes, definitely. I enjoyed it as well. And I would love to talk more. I think we've got like only a billion topics we could talk about.
Exactly. I would love that. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you are creating something today. Bye.